They steal in their sleep and don't know why. But everything stolen assembles into a map, pointing to a secret the detective is afraid to uncover. The Sleepwalkers Map. The rain fell as if someone were carefully washing the city from the face of the earth. Portland at this time of year rarely slept peacefully, but tonight the streets seemed especially empty. Through the flickering glow of the streetlights, a lone figure appeared. A man in thin pajamas walked barefoot across the cold asphalt. His face was motionless, eyes half closed, his movement strangely assured, as if someone were leading him by the hand. At first the street seemed silent, but if you held your breath, a thin ringing emerged in the air, a faint hum like the vibration of a string. In the rare pauses of rain, this sound followed his steps, accompanied by a whisper no louder than the wind. "You know the way." The man ignored cars, made no reaction to sounds. Even the rain slid from him as though the body existed apart from the mind. He turned into an alley, past fences overgrown with bushes, and reached an old warehouse. Once it had stored furniture, but now the windows were boarded, the walls peeling, and only shadows lived inside.
The heavy door creaked, and he entered without hesitation. Inside, the warehouse resembled a sepulchre. The floor was layered with dust, and across it ran dozens of footprints of bare feet. More disturbing still, within the dust was traced a circle with radiating lines, like a schematic nest of spokes. Along those lines lay heaps of identical objects, boxes of parts, gears, lamps, old radios. In a far corner, the man carefully placed a new item on the pile and left just as silently. A few steps from the entrance stood an observer. Detective Ryan McDonald, hidden under a coat, gripped a notebook in his hand. On his wrist sat a tight rubber band, his usual method to fight microsleeps, those sudden lapses into blank seconds. He snapped it, restoring clarity, and listened. The ringing grew sharper, and for an instant Ryan felt the pull to step forward into the circle's center. His foot had already shifted, but he yanked himself back with another snap of the band. Breathing heavily, he froze at the door, realizing this place was not simply a warehouse. It was a node where other people's dreams converged.
The first call came at dawn. An accountant in pajamas, detained near a hardware store. He swore he had gone to bed at 11 and awakened under flashing lights. Ryan McDonald listened, noting the familiar signs: empty stare, dry palms, steady breathing. He himself had slept only 2 hours. Insomnia had haunted him since an old failure. Back then, a witness had been walking in sleep, and Ryan had dismissed it as stress, losing the thread. That mistake still itched like a scar. By midday, the story repeated with a student. Witnesses said the same. She walked slowly, step by step, like under a metronome. An elderly shopkeeper added a phrase already heard that morning, and she kept whispering, "You know the way." By evening, there were enough repetitions to stop calling them chance. In his office, a city map spread across the wall. Red pins, arrest sites; blue pins, theft locations. The lines Ryan drew between them formed radial paths, like spokes, converging on the industrial district. The center, the abandoned warehouse. He snapped the band on his wrist, clearing the fog.
"This isn't coincidence," said Nina, an analyst from the unit, entering with the tablet. "Not only the route repeats, the step tempo is almost identical, average 78 beats per minute, and the trigger phrase appears in 3 out of 5 testimonies." "So it isn't their eyes that guide them," Ryan replied. It's hearing and memory. Nina turned the screen. A heat map of movements. The beams converged on a single point. "I'd call it an anchor route," she said. "A path imprinted in the mind, activated by an external signal. People of different ages, yet all remember a road they never walked." Ryan wrote the formula in his notebook and snapped the band again. The old case returned not on paper, but as a feeling. Once more he stood before an irrational detail that refused to fit the report. A damp wind seeped in from the street, and in the silence he thought he heard that same steady count. 1, 2, 3, 4. The map on the wall looked like a wheel, pointing to a single place, and Ryan knew. To find the answer, he would have to walk through someone else's memory, like across a thread stretched over the city. MacDonald always considered archives the best witnesses. Paper keeps what people try to forget. In the morning quiet, he and Nina sat in a hospital basement where old lamps buzzed overhead. Yellowed patient files carried the same name, Dr. Samuel Crane. The records dated 2005-2007. The treatment pattern repeated everywhere, a course of rhythmic sessions during which patients heard metronomes, chimes, sometimes recordings of domestic noises, ticking clocks, floor creaks. Sessions were described as relaxation therapy, but notes carried strange remarks. Subject easily enters trance phase. Response to repetition above normal. In one folder lay a strayed diary slipped among the files. A leather notebook. On the first page, for Emily. The dates matched the year of Crane's daughter's death. Between notes on methods came fragments of grief. She left alone. If she had felt with a shared heart, she would not have chosen it. Individuality is a prison. Here was born the idea of a shared mind as a cure for loneliness.
He wasn't just treating, Nina said, turning pages. He was trying to erase the borders between people. Another folder held diagrams of the brain. Lines linked auditory zones with memory centers. At the bottom was signed Unified Impulse. Later, on the city's edge, Ryan met Crane again. The doctor's house lay in shadows of trees, windows curtained. The old man opened at once as if expecting him. "You know what I found," Ryan said. Crane nodded, unashamed. "Every human fears being alone. I wanted to give them purpose, a shared song. Is that a crime?" "You stole their choice. Freedom is the price of solitude." "No," Crane said calmly. "Freedom is illusion. Alone, man dies. As part of the whole, he is immortal." The dialogue was not an interrogation, but a debate about the boundaries of the human. And in it, Ryan first sensed that the old man was not lying. He believed. The detective's office looked more like a lab. A large Portland map hung on the wall, pierced with multicolored pins and threads. At first, it seemed a random scatter of points, but now the lines formed a strict pattern, a circle with 12 spokes reaching a center. The nodes aligned with key city sites, water tower, river bridges, relay masts. "This is no accident," Nina said, standing beside him. She held a tablet with layered heat maps. "See, each route works like a ray. Everything converges at the warehouse as at a heart." Ryan nodded, snapped the band on his wrist. His head throbbed from sleeplessness, but the data was relentless. The stolen items, old radios, lamps, wire coils, metal boxes, finally made sense. They're phase props, everyday parts able to hold resonance. They stabilize the signal, and each sleepwalker delivers them to the right spot as if already knowing the design. Late at night, Ryan dared return to the warehouse.
The rain had stopped, the city asleep. Inside, he froze. The space had changed. Where once were piles, now stood a round frame built from the parts, strung with wires like a web. On the floor, chalk or charcoal marked phasing notations, like a clock with 12 divisions. He stepped inside and was struck by sudden disorientation. The room seemed to move, walls rippling. In his ears rose the same faint ringing as that first night. His foot moved forward on its own, toward the circle's center. Ryan snapped the band, inhaled sharply, clarity returning. His gaze caught the frame. Still unfinished, yet already breathing hidden force. Each piece sat perfectly in place. This was not scrap, but a synchronizer, a mechanism awaiting its first impulse. Ryan left, sensing that the closer he came to the truth, the stronger the net began to pull him too.
The morning began with a briefing in the tech department. A radio engineer, gray-haired with thick brows, studied warehouse photos and took notes. "This isn't junk," he said at last. "It works by resonance. The network runs on the people themselves. They're the carriers. The structure's center sets the phase and tone. The signal spreads far because the anchors were planted in their subconscious long ago." "So," Nina clarified, "the device only triggers what was implanted 20 years ago?" "Exactly," he nodded. "Not a transmitter, a key turning a lock." In the lab, they attempted a cautious test. Several former patients of Crane volunteered. When they played a short audio file, monotone tone, simple rhythm, one man froze. His gaze glazed, breath steadied. Only seconds later, he blinked, embarrassed. As if I forgot where I was." Nina recorded the results. Ryan felt a chill across his skin. He had heard that tone in dreams.
Later, combing through Crane's seized papers, they found notes. Among brain diagrams and frequency tables stood the phrase, "unified impulse." Beside it, an unfinished formula and scattered lines with rhythmic breaks. Break the step. Hold breath. Counter phrase. Counter induction, but interrupted midway. That evening, Ryan returned to the warehouse. Inside, the frame now looked nearly complete. A faint ringing filled the air. He stepped in, and his body betrayed him. Thoughts scattered, his foot carried him forward. Eyes clouded, heart slowed. In his head, "You know the way." For a second, he was a pawn ready to dissolve into the scheme. But a snap of the band and a measured breath, 4, 7, 8, tore him back. The walls solidified again. He retreated, breathing hard. No doubt remained, the device awaited command, and he himself was part of its resonance. The warehouse glowed in the half-dark, as if a city of wires had risen inside. The round frame was complete, 12 spokes meeting at a center where lamps flickered. Metal coils hummed, air vibrated with an intensifying tone. Sleepwalkers lined the walls, motionless, eyes shut, like actors awaiting a cue. At the device, Crane himself. His hands slid over levers and dials. He turned to Ryan, voice almost tender. "You came just in time. You are the key. Without you, the network is incomplete." The tone grew louder, piercing his ears, and the world blurred. Ryan felt his legs move forward. Before his eyes appeared a vision, a city threaded with lines of light. People linked into one network. Each street a vessel carrying shared thoughts. He felt himself dissolve into the choir, losing self. In his mind resounded the triad: tone, step, phrase. Heart beating 78 per minute. You know the way. And suddenly a memory lit the darkness. The smell of coffee his mother brewed each morning. Her quiet voice. Breathe deeper, Ryan. He clung to it like a lifeline. Snapped the band. Breathed the 4-7-8 rhythm. The ringing cracked.
He recalled the fragment from Crane's notes. Counter-induction. Break the step. Hold breath. Fracture rhythm. And the counterphrase, you do not know the way. Ryan reached the device, shifted a coil aside, yanked a cable from the ground. Sparks lit the warehouse. At the same moment, he shouted, cutting across the tone, you do not know the way. The impulse collapsed. The network he had seen in trance disintegrated, glowing nodes extinguished one by one. Sleepwalkers staggered, fell to their knees, eyes slowly opening. The frame sputtered and died into dead metal. Crane screamed, not in pain but rage. His voice vanished into silence. The device was dead because the resonance was gone. Ryan stood among the wreckage, breathing hard. He had won not with a bullet, but by holding on to his own self. The city lived on. Newspapers wrote of traffic jams and games, mentioning almost nothing of the night's events. In official reports, it was reduced to a series of sleep disturbances. Samuel Crane was taken into custody. Documents recorded, attempted mass suggestion prevented. Former patients were prescribed simple recovery routines, variable rhythm sounds, breathing exercises, new habits to break old associations, all wrapped in the dry word rehabilitation. Ryan sat in his office staring at the city map. Red line still converged at the warehouse. He left it pinned on the wall, reminder that the pattern had once been alive. In his wallet, among papers, lay a folded scrap with handwritten words, "You do not know the way," his personal counter-anchor. On his wrist the rubber band remained, no longer just a habit, but a sign he could hold himself. Later he returned to the warehouse. The floor was strewn with dust and debris, yet amid the chaos remained a pattern, a circle with 12 spokes, dead but visible, like a scar on skin. Ryan paused, realizing the real danger lay not in the device or the man who built it, but in the fact that the memory of such patterns never vanishes completely. He turned and walked away. Inside, silence reigned, and that silence felt like the surest guarantee that now the choice was his alone.